My name is Nick Floyd, and I'm a Magic the Gathering player. Over 25 years ago, I created a Magic variant I called the Dan Dan deck. 2 whole decades later, I renamed it Forgetful Fish and dropped it on the Magic internet community to little notice. It came as a complete surprise 7 years later when I found out the Magic community had picked it up. And most players call it Dan Dan today, which is fine by me. I suppose I'm one of those Magic players of old. I started playing Magic about a year after its initial release, which means I missed the days of unlimited Moxen and Lowtie by just a couple of months. But I was totally into Magic for more than a decade. I played for the entertainment value, but I also played for the competition. I have no hesitation saying I was as competitive as I could be growing up in a small town in the least populated state, and in my late teens I had a brush with competitive play at the national level. Magic the Gathering has been a creative outlet for me for most of my life, and I don't want that to change. And that's why I started Magic Storytime. Here I will tell my entertaining stories about playing Magic the Gathering over the years. And once I've gathered a following, I'll be able to retell the tales of others who send in their stories. So please sit back and enjoy Magic Storytime. This is Episode 3 My Discovery of Magic. I grew up in Rock Springs, a small town of about 19,000 in the southwestern corner of Wyoming, about 3 hours from Salt Lake City across the Utah border. Rock Springs did not have a game store or a large gaming community. In the early fall of 1994, just more than a year after Magic's first release, I finally tried Magic. My 2 best friends and I were about to go into high school. In Rock Springs, at the time, high school began in the sophomore year, so it was 10th grade, and we were 15 or 16 years old. The 3 of us were into fantasy games, and we played Dungeons & Dragons together regularly. We would order miniatures and gaming supplies from a catalog retailer in Wisconsin called Wargames West, went out of business in the early 2000s. In 1994, Wargames West's last few catalogs had been covered with cards and praise for a new game called Magic the Gathering, which had debuted at Gen Con in the previous summer. TSR, the company that produced Dungeons & Dragons at the time, before Wizards of the Coast took it over, had responded with a collectible card game of their own called Spellfire, which we could purchase locally. It was bad and horribly unbalanced, so that probably delayed us trying Magic the Gathering for even longer. But finally, just weeks before we began high school, we made a Wargames West order, where me and one of my 2 friends, we'll call him Donnie, but that's not his real name. Our last communication wasn't the most congenial, so I'll change his name. And he still owes me $30. With this Wargames West order, Donnie and I decided to each order a starter deck of Magic the Gathering. Our order arrived on the last day of our first week of high school, the same day that I got hired for my first job in fast food service. So, I started high school, my first job, and Magic the Gathering, all in the same week in September 1994. After school on that day, I rushed home with my revised edition Magic starter deck and opened it up. I don't remember what I got, except I know I opened a Demonic Tutor and an Unholy Strength. Due to the artwork on both of these cards, I decided I should hide them under my mattress. My family was never very religious, but I knew my mother had heard bad things about fantasy games like Dungeons & Dragons, and I knew that she would not be happy to see the cards with pentagrams on them. I hid the fact that I played Dungeons & Dragons from her until I was in college some years later. Anyway, that weekend my family and I went to Salt Lake City to do some school shopping, and I bought 2 revised booster packs from a game store there, still not having ever played the game. One of my rares in the boosters was Wrath of God. Great, another card I should probably hide from Mom. So, sometime in the next few weeks, I set out to teach myself and Donnie to play Magic from reading the little revised edition rulebook. I guess in my friend groups, I've always been the guy who'll read the rules when it comes to new games. Probably not surprising if any of you have read my Forgetful Fish rules document. It wasn't easy to learn Magic from the revised rulebook. I remember the first game we played. Donnie and I got hung up on whether or not a Drudge Skeletons could regenerate turns after it had died. To be fair, the regeneration rules have always been horrible, and that's why Wizards has phased it out over the years. And of course, the rulebook doesn't teach you anything about how to build a deck, or even that deck building was a thing. So Donnie and I were just playing every card we had in each of our decks. It was pretty terrible, and I didn't really see the magic of Magic the Gathering yet. But one day, the second week of school, I opened up my locker, and there, sitting at the bottom, was a clear plastic box with Magic cards in it. They weren't mine. Where did they come from? Was it real magic that put them in my locker? Did I find the magic? No. Underclassmen had to share lockers at school, and the cards were my locker partners, so I asked him about them the next time I saw him. He said that there was a sports card shop in the mini mall in town, and they had Magic cards too, and they were running tournaments on Saturdays. Whoa! Fat, dope, and radical. Hey, it was the 90s. So I told Donnie, and we decided we'd have to check that out. So he and I dropped by the store after school one day, and they were indeed having Magic tournaments remotely up at the community college every Saturday. It was a $5 entry fee, and the winner got most of the total entry fees and credit at the store. I had just begun my new job in the luxurious field of fast food, and I had to work that first Saturday. So I begged Donnie to wait a week and we could go together the following weekend. He reluctantly agreed, and we planned to attend the following Saturday. But at school the next Monday, Donnie tells me that he went to the tournament without me. Yeah, after he promised not to. Did I mention he still owes me money? But he told me it was a good thing that he did go without me, because he discovered that everyone builds decks by using only cards of one or two colors and focuses on one strategy. He was pretty embarrassed having a random, unfocused deck and lost every game. Well, that's how he excused his betrayal. Okay, fine, but you still owe me $30. Anyway, the card shop sold cheap decks that they put together from commons that would quickly give us more cards of specific colors and help us focus our decks. That was cool. I had finally found the magic in Magic the Gathering. So for my first little tournament, I brought a terrible red-green deck that had craw worms and fireballs. I did win my first game against one of the more seasoned players. I heard him later tell someone that he had beaten me, but he didn't. Anyway, I lost a lot, but it was cool and fun. I was hooked, so was Donnie. After that, I made sure I had every other Saturday morning off so that I could play Magic. I have several stories about playing Magic in those first couple of years, but those are stories for another time. But tune in next time for the first true Danecdote, where I will share the creation of the first Dan deck and how I came up with the idea. Thank you for watching Magic Storytime, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. It really helps out.